I like the style. I think that having something that's more readable, more approachable is great. And I think it also attempts to demystify what's adult social care, what's all this about. So I think readily accessible is great. And the opportunity to share what's good, what's not so good, and where we've demonstrated success against what we've tried to achieve in the previous year is a really positive way to go forward.
I think the thing about the local account for me is that it's full of personal stories, and it's people that have had contact with our services, people who are interested in our services, and they've taken the time and trouble to actually contribute to its development. So you've got a whole different areas and sections of the local account where it really comes alive, because you can see real people and what they feel, what they sense about the service, what's been their experience, and what's been their criticism of our services as well. So I think it's a fantastic piece of work. I think we work on it every year in a different way, and we try to improve on it every year. And the bit about it being a local account, I think is great for us, because it's another way of being held to account for the services that we deliver, and how we work with the wider community. So whilst it's not a sort of statutory tool in terms of a scrutiny committee, for instance, or cabinet, for instance, I think it's a really important part of that whole feedback loop and how we interact with the people that we serve. In all honesty, I think there's been so many reasons to be proud of adult social care, housing and public health this year. It's been a really successful year against a backdrop actually of that we know about, of that increasing demand, that reducing of budgets for public services. But what we've managed to do is work really hard within the resources that we've got. We celebrated World Social Work Day just recently, and that was fantastic because we were able to demonstrate locally, regionally and nationally the work that our practitioners do in the field. And that helps so much with how we want to recruit and retain staff, and how we can get the right kind of people and new people into the system who've maybe not considered a career in social work or a career in care services. Again, this year we've had visits from the Chief Social Worker in the UK, which was brilliant, who recognised our work and had spent a full day talking with staff. We've had recognition of our integrated hospital team. They're currently one of the top performing teams, or we are one of the top performing councils in the UK in relation to getting people out of hospital as quickly as possible, and that's just fantastic achievement for the team. They've been recognised through a number of awards, Social Worker of the Year, Team of the Year Gold Award, and just recently with an LGA award. So whilst all these awards are lovely, what does it really do for people? It does an awful lot, because it means that people want to work here. It means that people are proud to show what they're doing for Shropshire, and ultimately that makes our services better and better. So it's been a really exciting year, and lots of things to be proud of.
And I think from my perspective, I think we've been doing some work, particularly in public health, around social prescribing, working with some really enthusiastic GPs across the county, and that's been welcomed and recognised nationally. One of our team chairs the regional network, and we've been fortunate enough to present at national conference what's now been called the Shropshire model of the work that we're doing across that, working with the community and voluntary sector. So some really exciting development work that continues apace. Well, I think I know that we've come under considerable pressure from the budget round in relation to public health spending, and I know also that services in relation to both carers and adult social care have come under considerable pressure, and I think that as a system across colleagues in health and ourselves, we share the responsibility to make sure that we maintain a focus on the individuals that we're supporting, and that we work much harder to coordinate effort between agencies, and that work continues, but the challenge is ever present.
I think from my perspective it's building on that. It is absolutely to do with how do we as a whole try to address some of those big challenges we have. So whilst we're talking about reduction in money all the time, we're talking about how we can work better with health services, how do we work better with the community and voluntary sector. For me, it's how does all this come together, and how does it focus on you as an individual, on you, on your family, on your friends, on your community, and how do we get that right for people? So that remains the ultimate challenge for us, is just how do we align all the things we've got at our disposal. And that doesn't mean paid for services all the time, but how do we interact with a whole suite of activities, of organisations that can come together to provide the kind of support that people really need, and will keep them far independent for far longer. So it goes back to those aspirations around happiness, well-being, and the ability really to live the life you want.
Well, I think there's some real excitement and energy around the proposals with the health service around care closer to home. So some of the ambition as we move to reorganise hospital acute services around how communities and how the working communities responds to those people who need support, but that support doesn't necessarily need to be located within a hospital. And so colleagues in social care and in health working very closely to develop that and to make sure that what we develop between us suits the locality and the geography of Shropshire and continues to deliver for the residents of Shropshire. So I'm keen to make sure that develops appropriately, and we're supporting that. And I'm also keen to look at the opportunities that come out of particularly government opting to fund social care advisors in primary care networks, and we're keen to develop that work from within localities to make sure that they get those best opportunities.
I think the focus continues to be on what we would describe as early intervention and prevention work, but what that really means is how can we support people much earlier, or how can we direct people to the kind of support that will just keep people on an even keel for a little bit longer. We recognise there are people with profound disabilities that will need complex packages of support, and absolutely we need to continue our work to deliver first-class services in that area and make sure that we're working with different providers to develop that care package, those packages of support for people, and make sure that they grow and develop as that individual grows and develops, or as their needs develop. But for me, it's getting a little bit ahead of that, and how can we work with people at either an earlier age, as a sort of transition from childhood into adulthood, or actually how can we work with a much broader set of people with small interventions that will just help them at those times when they most need it. And for me, again, it's something about understanding the information that we hold, the data that we have, where we can get a little bit better at predicting where and when those things might happen, and where and when we can intervene to greatest effect. So that's a real aspiration for us moving forward. I'm really excited about how we might get into that kind of work.